Welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into 4 jaw-dropping Karen stories that will leave you shaking your head. From school drama over lead roles, to outrageous behavior at a school burger party, blatant favoritism in the classroom, and chaos in a movie theater, these stories highlight entitlement at its finest. Get ready for a mix of disbelief, drama, and a few lessons along the way. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let's jump into these unbelievable tales. As a homeroom teacher, you get used to handling all sorts of parental concerns, from missing homework to questions about class projects, but nothing could have prepared me for the whirlwind that was Mrs. Karen Thompson. I'd heard whispers in the teacher's lounge about her, the kind of parent who sent 5-paragraph emails over minor inconveniences and demanded meetings over every perceived slight. I never had the pleasure of dealing with her personally, until the school play incident. The day began normally enough. The school was abuzz with excitement over the upcoming production of The Enchanted Forest, a whimsical tale that the drama teacher, Mr. Carter, had been painstakingly directing for months. Auditions had wrapped up the previous week, and the cast list was posted just the day before. Students crowded the board in the morning, scanning for their names and chatting animatedly about their roles. Most were thrilled, some were disappointed, but all seemed to accept the results. Except for Karen's daughter, Lily. Lily was a sweet enough student, though she lacked the stage presence some of her peers had. She'd auditioned for the lead role, Princess Rosalind, but was ultimately cast as a supporting character. From what I'd heard, the role went to another student, Emily, whose audition had been show-stopping. Emily's pitch-perfect delivery and natural charisma had made her an obvious choice. By lunchtime, I sensed something was brewing. Several students mentioned that Lily had been crying in the hallways, and one even whispered that her mother had already stormed into the school office, demanding a meeting with Mr. Carter. "Here we go," I thought to myself, bracing for the storm that was sure to follow. And sure enough, right after the last bell rang, Karen marched into my classroom. She was dressed in a sharp blazer and heels that clacked against the linoleum floor, her expression a mix of outrage and determination. Without so much as a greeting, she dove straight into her tirade. "Mrs. Lee," she began, her voice loud enough to turn a few heads from lingering students. "I'm here because I refuse to let my daughter be treated unfairly. Did you see the cast list for the school play?" "I did," I replied cautiously, already sensing where this was headed. "Then you must know how ridiculous it is that Lily wasn't given the lead role," Karen exclaimed, her voice rising with every word. "She worked so hard on her audition. Everyone said she deserved it. This is blatant favoritism." I tried to keep my tone calm. "Mrs. Thompson, I understand you're upset, but casting decisions are made by the drama teacher based on the auditions. Mr. Carter is very thorough." "Thorough," Karen interrupted, scoffing. "That's a joke. He clearly has his favorites, and it's obvious he's biased against Lily. Why else would he cast Emily of all people? Lily is just as talented, if not more so." I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. "From what I understand, Emily had an excellent audition." "Please," Karen snapped, waving a hand dismissively. "This isn't about Emily. This is about my daughter being overlooked because Mr. Carter can't see talent when it's right in front of him. I'm telling you right now, if this isn't fixed, I will be taking this matter to the principal, or higher." I hesitated. "Mrs. Thompson, I sympathize with your frustration, but the cast list is final. Mr. Carter has already started rehearsals, and changing the roles now would disrupt the entire production." Karen narrowed her eyes, clearly not happy with that answer. "So, you're telling me you're okay with my daughter being humiliated in front of her peers? This isn't just about a play, it's about her self-esteem, her future. Do you know how this could affect her confidence?" I tried to steer the conversation back to reason. "The play is a learning experience for all the students, and every role is important." "Don't patronize me," Karen cut me off. "I know how schools like to sugarcoat things. Supporting roles are just crumbs they throw to keep kids quiet. Lily deserves better." By this point, I could feel my patience wearing thin. "Mrs. Thompson, I encourage you to speak directly with Mr. Carter if you have concerns about the casting process. He's the one who—" "Oh, I already have," Karen interrupted again, her tone sharp. "And do you know what he said? He told me to respect the decision. The audacity. That man is unprofessional, and I don't know how he still has a job." I glanced at the clock, wishing the conversation would end, but Karen wasn't done yet. "If the school doesn't fix this," she declared, standing tall as if delivering a courtroom argument, "I will be forced to take legal action. I'm not afraid to involve lawyers if that's what it takes to get my daughter the recognition she deserves." I bit back a sigh. It was going to be a long week. Despite my best efforts to redirect Karen's energy, her threats to escalate didn't stop at my classroom door. The following morning, I found myself summoned to a meeting with the principal, Mr. Grant, alongside Mr. Carter, the drama teacher, and of course, Karen. She arrived 10 minutes early, armed with a stack of papers she declared were evidence of her daughter's mistreatment. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson," Mr. Grant began, his tone calm and diplomatic. "I understand you have concerns about the casting for the school play. We're here to listen and see how we can address them." Karen wasted no time launching into her complaints. "It's not just concerns, it's blatant favoritism," she exclaimed, slapping the stack of papers onto the table. "My daughter Lily deserved that lead role. She's been preparing for weeks. Mr. Carter's decision is unfair and biased, and I'm not going to let this slide." Mr. Carter, ever professional, remained composed. "Mrs. Thompson, I assure you that the casting was based entirely on the auditions. We evaluated every student on their performance, and Emily was chosen because she best fit the role of Rosalind. Lily gave a wonderful audition, but—" "Stop right there," Karen interrupted, pointing a finger at him. "You're just covering up your favoritism. I demand that you recast the role immediately." Mr. Grant stepped in, his voice firm but kind. "Mrs. Thompson, I understand your frustration, but as a school, we have policies in place. Once the cast list is finalized, it cannot be changed. Doing so would be unfair to all the students involved." Karen's face turned red, her frustration bubbling over. "Then you leave me no choice. If this school refuses to do the right thing, I'll be speaking to my lawyer. This is emotional harm, plain and simple. Lily has been crying every night because of this injustice." The room fell silent for a moment as Mr. Grant exchanged a look with Mr. Carter. Finally, he addressed Karen. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry you feel this way. We want Lily to have a positive experience, but we must also be fair to all our students. Perhaps you could encourage Lily to see this as an opportunity to shine in her current role and support the production as a whole." Karen scoffed. "Shine? In a supporting role? You can keep your excuses. I'll handle this myself." With that, she stood abruptly, collected her papers, and stormed out of the office, leaving the rest of us exchanging exasperated glances. The fallout was immediate. Within days, Karen made good on her promise to handle it herself by organizing a private performance at her home. Flyers were sent to parents and posted online, inviting everyone to The Real Enchanted Forest, starring Lily Thompson as Princess Rosalind. The event was as over-the-top as you'd expect from Karen. She transformed her backyard into a makeshift stage, complete with rented props, costumes, and a sound system. Karen played the role of director, producer, and self-appointed critic, barking instructions at neighborhood kids recruited to fill minor roles. Lily, to her credit, seemed excited to have the spotlight, but it was clear the entire production was more about Karen than her daughter. The day of the performance arrived, and a modest crowd of family friends and curious neighbors gathered. Karen greeted everyone with the enthusiasm of a Broadway producer, her voice carrying over the chatter. "Thank you all for coming to support Lily," she announced proudly. Unlike the school's version, this production celebrates true talent and creativity. The show itself was a chaotic affair. The script was loosely cobbled together from Lily's memory of the school's version, and the neighborhood kids fumbled through their lines with more enthusiasm than skill. Karen hovered near the stage, whispering cues and occasionally clapping louder than the audience to ensure everyone knew when to applaud. Lily performed well, but the spectacle felt hollow. It wasn't the triumph Karen had envisioned. It was a reminder of the lengths she'd go to control every aspect of her daughter's experience. A few days later, life at school returned to normal. The buzz surrounding Karen's backyard play faded, and the students refocused on their upcoming production. I checked in on Lily during homeroom to see how she was doing. "How are you feeling about the play?" I asked gently. She hesitated before answering. "I think it's going to be fun," she said, her voice soft. "Emily's really good as Rosalind. I just want to do my best in my role." Her answer surprised me, but it also gave me hope. Despite Karen's antics, Lily seemed to be finding her own way. Maybe, just maybe, she'd come out of this experience stronger, and perhaps even with a better understanding of what true teamwork and perseverance look like. As for Karen, I wouldn't be surprised if she's already planning her next grand production. At Crestwood Academy, a prestigious high school known for its rigorous academics and competitive atmosphere, whispers of favoritism had long floated through the hallways. Most students shrugged it off as harmless speculation, but for Anna, a hardworking junior, it was more than just a rumor. It was her reality. Anna had always been a diligent student. She spent hours perfecting essays, preparing for presentations, and participating actively in class discussions. Yet, her grades in Ms. Karen Rogers' English class consistently fell short of her expectations. No matter how much effort she put into her assignments, the feedback always seemed lukewarm, her grades hovering in the B range, while other students, particularly those from wealthier families, seemed to receive glowing praise and higher marks. It didn't take long for Anna to notice a pattern. Ms. Rogers, an outwardly sophisticated teacher with an air of superiority, always seemed to favor a specific group of students, those whose parents were major donors to the school or who came from affluent backgrounds. Their essays were lauded, their mistakes overlooked, and their ideas celebrated, even when their work was less than stellar. At first, Anna tried to convince herself that she was imagining it. Maybe Ms. Rogers was just a tough grader. Maybe her classmates really were that much better than her. But the more she observed, the more the disparity became impossible to ignore. The breaking point came during a class discussion about Shakespeare. Anna had spent the weekend deeply analyzing Macbeth, crafting thoughtful responses to anticipated questions. When she raised her hand to share her insights, Ms. Rogers barely acknowledged her, offering only a curt nod before moving on to another student, Catherine, the daughter of a well-known real estate developer. Catherine's response was surface level at best, but Ms. Rogers reacted as if she'd just uncovered the bard's greatest secret. "Brilliant observation, Catherine," she said with a smile. "You have such a unique perspective." Anna's frustration simmered. It wasn't just about the grades anymore. It was about the blatant disregard for her efforts. Determined to confirm her suspicions, she decided to take a bold step. One evening, while reviewing assignments for an upcoming essay submission, Anna approached her friend Emily, one of the top-performing students in the class. Emily was one of the few people Anna trusted completely, and she too had noticed Ms. Rogers' bias, though she had been hesitant to speak up. "Emily," Anna began hesitantly, "I want to try something, but I need your help." Emily raised an eyebrow. "What's on your mind?" Anna explained her plan. She wanted to test Ms. Rogers' grading by submitting one of Emily's previously graded essays under her own name. Emily's essay had received an A+ the previous semester, complete with glowing comments about its structure and creativity. If the same essay received a significantly lower grade under Anna's name, it would be undeniable proof of Ms. Rogers' bias. Emily hesitated, biting her lip. "You're sure about this? It could backfire." "I have to know," Anna replied firmly. "If I don't do this, I'll keep doubting myself. I need to know if it's me or if it's her." After a moment, Emily nodded. "All right, let's do it." The next day, Anna carefully retyped Emily's essay, changing only the name at the top. She submitted it with a mix of anxiety and determination, knowing there was no turning back now. The week that followed was agonizingly slow. Every time Anna saw Ms. Rogers in the hallway or at the front of the classroom, her heart raced. She tried to focus on her other classes, but the anticipation of getting the essay back consumed her thoughts. Finally, the day arrived. Ms. Rogers handed back the graded essays with her usual air of authority, her sharp heels clicking against the tiled floor as she moved between desks. When Anna received her paper, her heart sank. Written in red ink at the top was a C+, accompanied by comments like "lacks originality" and "needs stronger analysis." Anna stared at the grade, her hands trembling with a mix of anger and vindication. She had submitted the exact same essay that had earned Emily an A+. The difference wasn't in the work, it was in the name on the paper. The proof was undeniable, and Anna knew she couldn't let this slide. She folded the essay neatly, her mind racing as she began to plan her next steps. It was time to confront the bias head-on. Anna's heart raced as she entered the principal's office, clutching her essay tightly in her hands. Mr. Daniels, the school's principal, sat behind his large oak desk, his expression calm but curious. "Come in, Anna," he said warmly, gesturing for her to take a seat. "What brings you here today?" Anna hesitated for a moment before taking a deep breath. "Mr. Daniels, I need to talk to you about something important. It's about Ms. Rogers and the way she's been grading my work and the work of other students." Mr. Daniels leaned forward, his brows knitting together. "Go on." Anna unfolded the essay and placed it on the desk. "This is a paper I submitted last week. It got a C+. But the thing is, it's not my essay, it's Emily's. She submitted the exact same paper last semester and got an A+. The principal's eyes widened slightly as he picked up the essay and began to read through it. "You're telling me this is word for word the same essay?" "Yes," Anna said, her voice firm. I wanted to see if Ms. Rogers was being fair, so I did this as a test. I know it's not something I'd normally do, but I felt like I had no other choice. She always favors students from wealthier families, and I've seen it happen too many times. Mr. Daniels was quiet for a moment, studying the essay and the comments scribbled in red ink. Finally, he looked up. This is a serious accusation, Anna. If what you're saying is true, it could have significant consequences. I'll need to investigate this thoroughly, Anna nodded. I understand. I just want things to be fair, for everyone. The investigation begins. Over the next week, Mr. Daniels initiated an internal investigation. He reviewed Ms. Rogers' grading records and interviewed several students, including Emily, who confirmed Anna's story. Patterns of favoritism began to emerge, with higher grades consistently going to students from prominent families, regardless of the quality of their work. When the evidence became too compelling to ignore, Mr. Daniels called a meeting with Ms. Rogers to address the allegations. He also invited Anna to provide her perspective, as her actions had sparked the investigation. The meeting took place in a small conference room. Ms. Rogers sat stiffly, her perfectly tailored blazer and icy demeanor suggesting she didn't take the situation seriously. When Anna entered, her nervousness was evident, but she stood tall, determined to speak her truth. Mr. Daniels began the meeting. Ms. Rogers, we've gathered significant evidence regarding your grading practices, including testimony from students and a review of your records. Anna has brought forward an example that raises serious concerns. Ms. Rogers raised an eyebrow, glancing briefly at Anna before speaking. This is absurd. I've been teaching for years, and I always grade based on merit. If a student isn't performing well, that's not my fault. Anna took a deep breath and spoke up. Ms. Rogers, I submitted Emily's essay under my name, and it received a C+. You gave her an A+ for the exact same work. How can you explain that? Ms. Rogers' eyes narrowed. That's completely unethical, Anna. You deliberately misrepresented your work to trap me. If anything, you should be the one facing consequences for academic dishonesty. Mr. Daniels held up a hand to stop her. Ms. Rogers, while Anna's method may have been unconventional, it revealed a larger issue. Multiple students have come forward with similar experiences, and the grading records show a clear pattern of bias. This is not about one essay. It's about fairness and equity. For the first time, Ms. Rogers looked uneasy. I was simply trying to encourage students who might need extra support, she said, though her tone lacked conviction. Mr. Daniels didn't let her off the hook. Support should not come at the expense of fairness. Favoritism undermines the integrity of our educational system and the trust students place in us. I'm afraid I have no choice but to place you on administrative leave while we determine the next steps. News of the investigation spread quickly through the school community. Students who had long felt overlooked finally felt validated, and parents began demanding more transparency in the grading process. Ms. Rogers ultimately resigned, avoiding further disciplinary action, but the incident left a lasting impact. Anna's bravery in coming forward sparked a broader conversation about equity and accountability. Mr. Daniels worked with the school board to implement new policies, including anonymous grading systems and periodic audits of teacher evaluations. Workshops were also introduced to train staff on recognizing and addressing implicit biases. One afternoon, Anna received a handwritten note from Mr. Daniels. It read, "Dear Anna, your courage to stand up for what's right has inspired real change in our school. I'm proud of your determination and your commitment to fairness. Thank you for making a difference. Sincerely, Mr. Daniels." For Anna, it wasn't just about grades. It was about ensuring that every student had an equal opportunity to succeed. As she walked through the halls of Crestwood Academy, she felt a renewed sense of pride, knowing she had played a part in making the school a better place for everyone. The annual Burger Day at Ridgewood Elementary was always a highlight of the year. For the students, it meant a fun break from routine, the smell of freshly grilled burgers wafting through the schoolyard, and a chance to enjoy food with their friends under the warm sun. For the teachers, however, it was organized chaos, making sure every student got their meal, resolving disputes over the best seats at the picnic tables, and keeping the lines moving smoothly. I was one of the teachers assigned to oversee the event that year, and for the most part, things were going well. The grill team was working efficiently, and students were laughing and chatting as they enjoyed their meals. But as I stood by the condiment station, helping a group of students open ketchup packets, I noticed a commotion near the food line. A volunteer motioned me over. "Mr. Harris," she said, looking unsure, "we have a little situation here. Standing next to her was Liam, a shy fourth grader with tears in his eyes. "What happened, Liam?" I asked, kneeling to his level. He took my burger," Liam sniffled, pointing toward the picnic tables. "Who?" I asked gently. "Max," Liam said, wiping his eyes. "I was putting ketchup on my plate, and when I turned around, my burger was gone." I sighed inwardly, already suspecting this wouldn't be a simple misunderstanding. Max was a name I recognized immediately. He was known around the school as a charming but impulsive troublemaker, quick with excuses and even quicker to push boundaries. I scanned the yard and spotted him sitting at a table, munching on an unwrapped burger with suspicious enthusiasm. "Thanks, Liam," I said, patting him on the shoulder. "Let's go talk to Max." We walked over to where Max was seated. He looked up with his mouth full, a sheepish grin spreading across his face. "What's up, Mr. Harris?" he asked casually. "Max, did you take Liam's burger?" I asked, keeping my tone calm but firm. Max hesitated, his eyes darting toward Liam. "I didn't steal it," he said finally. "I just borrowed it. He wasn't eating it yet, so I figured it'd go to waste." "Max," I said, suppressing a sigh. "That's not how it works. You can't take someone else's food without asking. Let's go back to the food line and make sure Liam gets another burger." Max followed reluctantly, muttering under his breath about how it wasn't a big deal. I made sure Liam got a replacement burger, apologized for the inconvenience, and gave Max a short lecture about respecting others' belongings. I thought that would be the end of it, but little did I know, the drama was just beginning. The next morning, as I prepared for the day's lessons, I saw an email in my inbox from Olivia Grant, Max's mother. The subject line read, "Urgent, unfair treatment of my son." I clicked on it, already bracing myself. Olivia had a reputation among the staff for being vocal. She frequently sent long emails about perceived injustices involving Max, and this one was no exception. The email accused me of publicly humiliating her son during Burger Day and misunderstanding his good intentions. According to her, Max hadn't stolen the burger. He'd been helping to reduce food waste. She concluded by demanding an immediate meeting to resolve the situation. Later that afternoon, Olivia arrived at my classroom, her entrance as dramatic as I'd anticipated. She was impeccably dressed, her heels clicking against the floor, and her voice carried through the hallway. "Mr. Harris," she said, barely waiting for me to greet her, "I'm here to talk about how you treated Max yesterday." I gestured for her to sit. "Of course, Mrs. Grant. Let's discuss what happened." She sat but wasted no time launching into her complaints. First of all, Max is a kind-hearted boy who was only trying to prevent waste. Liam wasn't eating his burger, and Max thought it would go to waste. Instead of commending him, you embarrassed him in front of everyone. "Mrs. Grant," I said, keeping my tone professional, "Max took something that wasn't his without asking. While I understand he may have had good intentions, it's important for him to learn to respect other people's belongings, even food." Olivia crossed her arms, clearly unsatisfied. "This wouldn't even be an issue if the school provided enough food in the first place. How do you expect growing children to be satisfied with just one burger? The real problem here is the school's lack of resources." I resisted the urge to point out that every student had been given a generous portion, and many had gone back for seconds. Instead, I redirected the conversation. "I understand your concern, but the rules are in place to ensure fairness. Max's actions disrupted that fairness, which is why I addressed it." "That's ridiculous," Olivia snapped. "Fairness isn't letting food go to waste while kids go hungry. Maybe the school should rethink how it organizes these events." It was supposed to be a quiet, relaxing evening. I had been looking forward to this movie for weeks, a blockbuster action film with stellar reviews. The theater was packed, the smell of buttery popcorn wafting through the air as people settled into their seats. I was seated in the middle row, perfect for enjoying the big screen. The lights dimmed, and the familiar hum of anticipation spread through the audience. But my excitement was quickly overshadowed by an unexpected guest sitting directly in front of me, Karen. From the moment she arrived, Karen made her presence known. She breezed into the theater with her oversized bag and a loud conversation on her phone. Yeah, I'm here now. I'll call you after the movie," she said, her voice loud enough to turn a few heads. Ignoring the stares, she plopped into her seat, rustling through her bag as the trailers began. At first, I thought maybe she'd settle down once the movie started, but no sooner had the opening credits rolled than Karen pulled out her phone, a massive, brightly lit screen that shone like a beacon in the darkened theater. She scrolled through her messages, occasionally typing replies, the clicking sound of her nails on the screen grating against the ambient sound background of the movie. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the screen in front of me, but the glare of her phone was impossible to miss. It wasn't just me, either. A man seated a few rows back let out a loud sigh, clearly frustrated. Someone else whispered, "Seriously?" But Karen seemed oblivious, or perhaps she just didn't care. Finally, the woman seated directly beside Karen leaned over and spoke quietly. "Excuse me, could you please put your phone away? The light is really distracting." Karen barely looked up. "I'm just checking something. It'll only take a minute," she replied dismissively, waving her hand as if to brush off the concern. The woman frowned. "The movie's already started. Can you turn it off, please?" Karen let out an exaggerated sigh and turned slightly in her seat, her voice dripping with condescension. "Why are you so pressed? It's just a phone. Mind your business and watch the movie." The tension in the air was palpable. People around her began shifting uncomfortably, some muttering under their breath. I felt a twinge of secondhand embarrassment, but also growing irritation. Who acts like this in a packed theater? A man seated 2 rows ahead of me finally turned around, his patience clearly worn thin. "Hey lady, she's right. Turn off your phone. We all paid to watch the movie, not stare at your screen." Karen scoffed loudly, her phone still glowing. "Oh, so now everyone's ganging up on me? Unreal. I'm not bothering anyone. You people need to relax." I couldn't hold back any longer. Leaning forward slightly, I added, "You are bothering people. That screen is as bright as a flashlight, and it's distracting for everyone. Just turn it off." Karen whipped around in her seat, glaring at me. "Who do you think you are, telling me what to do? It's my phone. I can use it if I want to." "It's common courtesy," I replied, trying to stay calm. "This is a shared space. We're all here to watch the movie, not deal with your rudeness." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Wow, okay, so now you're the movie police? Maybe I should call management and tell them you're harassing me." The collective groans from the surrounding audience made it clear that Karen wasn't winning any sympathy. Someone a few seats away muttered, "Unbelievable." The man 2 rows ahead shook his head and turned back to the screen, clearly done trying to reason with her, but Karen wasn't finished. "You know what?" she announced loudly, standing up halfway in her seat. "If you're also bothered by my phone, maybe I'll just leave." "Great idea," someone quipped from the back of the theater, earning a smattering of laughter. Karen huffed, clearly flustered, but unwilling to back down. Instead of leaving, she sat back down, her phone still in hand. She didn't resume texting, but kept the screen on, as if to prove a point. The movie played on, but the atmosphere was tense. Every so often, Karen would shift in her seat dramatically, making it clear she was still upset. For those of us seated nearby, the experience was anything but enjoyable. What should have been a fun night at the movies had turned into a lesson in patience and a masterclass in dealing with entitlement. By the halfway mark, I was already thinking about how I'd tell this story later. Little did I know, things were about to escalate even further. The tension in the theater was palpable. Karen's phone screen remained lit, casting a distracting glow around her. She shifted in her seat with exaggerated movements, clearly trying to make a statement. While the rest of us attempted to focus on the movie, her behavior became impossible to ignore. She huffed, sighed loudly, and muttered complaints under her breath. Then, as if deciding she hadn't caused enough of a scene, she started speaking. "This is ridiculous," Karen said, her voice loud enough to cut through the film's dialogue. "A bunch of snowflakes can't handle a little light from a phone. It's not even that bright." "Shh," came a chorus from various parts of the theater. Karen scoffed, her frustration boiling over. She stood up halfway in her seat and turned to address the audience. "Oh, you all can shh me? What about my rights? What about my comfort? You're all acting like I'm the problem when you're the ones harassing me." People groaned audibly. The man 2 rows ahead of me, who had already tried reasoning with her earlier, turned back around. "Lady, no one is harassing you. We just want to watch the movie in peace. If you can't follow the rules, leave." Karen crossed her arms defiantly. "I paid for my ticket just like everyone else. I'll leave when I'm good and ready, and maybe I'll tell the manager how rude everyone here is." Before anyone else could respond, a young usher appeared at the end of the row, looking nervous but determined. Dressed in the standard black uniform with a flashlight in hand, he approached Karen cautiously. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said politely. "We've had several complaints about your phone use and disruptive behavior. I'm going to have to ask you to turn off your phone and keep your voice down." Karen whirled around, her voice dripping with indignation. "Oh, great! They sent the kid police. What are you, 16? Do you even know who you're talking to?" The usher blinked, clearly taken aback but trying to remain professional. "Ma'am, I'm just here to make sure everyone enjoys the movie. If you don't comply, I'll have to get security involved. Karen snorted. Go ahead, call security. I'll tell them how this whole theater is ganging up on me for no reason. True to the usher's word, security was called in within minutes. A tall, broad-shouldered guard appeared, his presence commanding attention. He approached Karen with the calm authority of someone who had dealt with her type before. Ma'am, he said firmly, you're disrupting the movie and ignoring requests to follow the rules. I'm going to have to escort you out. Karen, now in full meltdown mode, threw her hands up dramatically. You've got to be kidding me! I'm the victim here, and you're treating me like a criminal? This is harassment! The guard didn't flinch. Ma'am, you need to leave. Now! Karen stood her ground, her voice rising to a near shout. I'm not going anywhere! I have every right to be here! By now, the audience had lost all patience. Some people cheered sarcastically when the guard motioned for Karen to gather her things. Others muttered under their breath about how the situation had dragged on too long. One teenager in the back even yelled, "Just kick her out already!" Realizing she was outnumbered, Karen finally grabbed her bag with a dramatic flourish. Fine, but I'll be speaking to the manager, and I'll make sure everyone knows how terribly I was treated. As the guard escorted her out, her complaints could still be heard echoing down the hallway. This place is a joke. I'm never coming back here again. When the theater doors finally closed behind her, a collective sigh of relief swept through the audience. Someone clapped, prompting a ripple of applause and laughter. Now we can actually watch the movie, the man 2 rows ahead quipped, earning a few chuckles. As the film resumed, the tension in the room slowly dissipated. Still, the experience left a bitter aftertaste. What should have been an enjoyable night out had been overshadowed by Karen's entitlement and refusal to respect basic social norms. Later, as I left the theater, I overheard the staff talking. Apparently, Karen had demanded a full refund at the front desk and threatened to write a scathing review online. But from the looks on their faces, they weren't too worried. After all, her behavior was now a story they, and the rest of us, would be retelling for weeks.